All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for waiting for us. If you would, welcome to our April 17th meeting. If you would please rise, Nicole will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Welcome once again. Ms. Germano, any changes to the meeting agenda?
Yes, we have two changes. Items 8A through 8O. Policy first read is going to be moved to the May 8th Board of Education meeting. And we have a revised schedule B2.
Thank you. All right, so that brings us to item 5. Very exciting. Dr. Scanlon, we turn it over to you.
Yes, it's my pleasure to introduce our two advisors for the DECA State Champions here, if they would like to come to the podium and introduce the students that we're going to honor this evening.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Eileen Littman, and this is Sean Sudama.
Hello, how are you?
We're the co-advisors for the DECA chapter at Ward Melville High School, and we're really honored to be here tonight to recognize 14 outstanding students who not only made it to the state competition in the top of their tiers, but they are moving on nationally and internationally to Anaheim, California next week. Before we introduce the students who are participating in this competition in California, I just want to say that we have an award-winning chapter. We have amazing students. They're extremely dedicated. Their business savvy is above and beyond, and it is just unbelievably impressive. This is the 22nd consecutive year in a row that our business club has made it to a national and international status, which is quite impressive. The first recipient is Alexandra Duan. The next is Vivian Yi. Shirley Zhang. Leisha Lin. Genevieve McGee. Medina Jalili. Ethan Tam. Alexandra Patekin. Ava Parada. And Oliver Wu.
So I also want to acknowledge Mr. Sudama and Ms. Littman for their countless hours of work as well. So we have 2 certificates for you for all your hard work. But, I'll get applaud, yes. But we have a quiz for all the students. What does DECA stand for? There you go, Distributive Education Clubs of America. I get everything under the sun about what that stands for. So thank you very much.
Dr. Scanlon, there's 4 students that couldn't make it tonight that we just wanted to mention their names. Katie Duong, Max Schoolman, Tegan Jarnigan, and Vincent Vinciguerra. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Yes.
Have fun in California.
Yes, good luck.
No earthquakes.
Yes,
We just-
absolutely. All right, well, we'll go from lots of our fabulous students to another one of our fabulous students. Nicole, what's the update?
I have the update. Good evening. Believe it or not, we're nearing the end of April and the school year is flying by. With spring break just days away, I'm so excited. Students are getting excited to relax and enjoy some warm weather. May will be here before we know it, bringing lots of fun end of the year celebrations and activities along, especially for the seniors. The day almost every senior looks forward to their whole high school career is rapidly approaching, officially marking the end of the college application process. After months of impatiently waiting for decisions to be made, I mean months, seniors will be able to sit back and enjoy their last days of high school. Before we get to the end of the year, let's take a look at some of the exciting events from this month. The Ward Mobile players had 2 spectacular performances of the Heidi Chronicles this past week. Big congratulations to the group on their huge success. Yesterday, the Three Village Advisory Board held a career speaking series for Ward Mobile High School students to connect with professionals in education and law. Several familiar faces from Three Village sat on the education panel, whereas local lawyers participated in the law panel. The panels were moderated by student officers and offered insight into career-related decisions. Professionals shared advice on getting into their industry, their favorite part of their jobs, and the journey of how they got to where they are today. The event had a great attendance and was definitely a success. The Ward Mobile Honors Jazz Ensemble was selected as one of 5 finalists in the Long Island Battle of the High School Bands. As we speak, the talented group is playing at the Westbury Music Fair. Congratulations to the Jazz Ensemble on this amazing accomplishment. The Ward Melville PTSA, in collaboration with the Ward Melville site-based team, presents the Color Run, a senior scholarship fundraiser. Come join the running force on Saturday, May 4th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. at Ward Melville High School. This event is open to all Three Village students and families. Get doused with color powder as you run a course around Ward Melville. The elementary or junior high with the highest register attendance will win the Gold Shoe Trophy. You can find the flyer on Ward Melville students' grade Google Classrooms or all over social media. As part of the site-based management team myself, I'm super excited for this school-wide event and I encourage everyone to sign up and be there. Finally, on Tuesday, May 14th, our annual Day to Shine event will be happening at Ward Melville High School. Special needs students from each of the district's buildings will gather for a day full of athletic events and outdoor activities. They will participate in fun events including a 100-meter dash, a hurdle race, and lots of field games. This is going to be another great event that I know many of our students are excited about. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you so much. All right, that brings us now to item 6B, a report from our Budget Advisory Committee. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much to all of the members of the committee. I know I feel like it rained every night. It was miserable to come out. It was a lot of hard work. We really do appreciate it. You each bring such unique perspectives and thoughtful questions, and it was really a lovely collaboration, and we're very, very grateful to all of you. So that being said, you have recommendations for us, and I would like to introduce Sherry Fontana, who's going to come up and speak on behalf of the Budget Advisory Committee.
To the Three Village Central School District Administration, the Board of Ed, and the Three Village community, we'd like to thank you for continuing with this committee and hope that it will continue for years to come. The Three Village Budget Advisory Committee, referred to as the BAC, has been meeting for several months. To show us the many varying programs where our tax dollars are spent, the Three Village District shared many presentations. Through many discussions, the BAC has seen that during these very difficult economic times, our district has always kept the goal of filling the educational, social, and emotional needs of our children as their main priority. We realize that no budget will ever be perfect, but our district is truly doing the very best they can under the circumstances. The Three Village Budget Advisory Committee has reviewed the information provided by the district, and within the context of that information, the committee finds that the budget proposed is expected to fulfill the financial obligations of the district for the 24-25 school year. We believe that the district has made many strides and will continue to work towards increasing our fiscal stability. Here are a few of the BAC's recommendations going forward. The budget presented at the tax cap of 2.84% was acceptable and reasonable. The reserve should be replenished as quickly as possible, so long as it is not at the expense of reducing programs and/or staff. All funding sources that are used to replenish the reserves must be accountable, and information related to the sources, therefore, must be publicly accessible. The district should research further into expanding programs that are reflective of modern world trends. The research into expanding these curriculums should include polling the student population so that the expanded programs are supported and utilized by the students. During future Budget Advisory Committee meetings, while the department chairs provide presentations, these presentations should include more specific information regarding their department's budget requests and changes for the upcoming year. Any substantial changes of 10% or more should be addressed and explained to the BAC. We recognize that the reality is that exact numbers may not be available, but this would be a representation of what the department chair's budgetary plan is, and this would be helpful. The administration should present a draft budget to the BAC at least 2 to 3 meetings before the final meeting to allow sufficient time for the BAC to review, ask questions, and be provided with responses to those questions. The BAC supports starting future BAC meetings earlier in the year if necessary to accommodate this recommendation. Future BAC should be provided their charge, intended purpose by the administration and Board of Education representatives at the first committee meeting. After delivering the charge and explaining it, the admin and Board of Ed representatives shall exit the meeting, and the remaining members shall have an informal private discussion to address their thoughts and select a chairperson. The Board of Ed should consider charging the BAC with a multi-year outlook and help prioritize the asks over a longer time horizon. The Board of Education shall publish a response to the BAC recommendations that can be reviewed by the public and discussed by the following BAC. Members of the BAC that are selected but cannot or for some reason choose not to serve should notify the Board of Ed and the administration and a replacement individual selected. The following are some additional recommendations that come from a smaller group of members. In order for the Board of Ed to make a fiscally sound decision, they should wait for the report given by the transportation consultants and then plan ways to which the funds to support the SSL, Start Schools Later initiative can be. If implementing this as well as the restructuring together saves money, it would be better served to implement them at the same time. The cost and impact on the students of the restructuring should be further explained with detail to the community. UPK should be given higher consideration, and the impact of having an actual UPK versus pre-K with enrichment should be shared with greater detail. Thank you.
So I too want to thank the members of the BAC. You had a tremendous effort on your hands and did a wonderful job looking at all of it. I do want to respond to some of the recommendations, and I think all of which there's many parts of this that we're in complete agreement with. Polling students is a wonderful idea. Try to get a sense of where they're thinking. That timing for that for us, because when we do course proposals, we have to have those proposals in October, November-ish to have it into the plan of study for the students to be able to select when they do their schedules in December and January. So we're going to need that information that very early in the school year, which is perfectly fine, and we have very good means of being able to do that. As far as addressing some of the changes, the 10% or more, obviously we agree as well. Any of those major changes, we've made some presentations about where we've shifted things over the time, where more priorities have been because of circumstances, particularly in areas like our students with special needs or E&L programs. Presenting the budget to the BAC, the overall intent was that we were going to do this a lot earlier, but this winter was a little unusual. That one night we had that crazy rainstorm and wind, and then we had a snowstorm, so I can't control acts of God, but we try as much as possible. And I think it's great that we would try to get those in sooner. It's also been an unusual year because we haven't dealt with a governor's proposal as bad as this in a long time. Usually in the past few years, particularly with COVID, we have had a much more reasonable amount of funding that has occurred. So that kind of threw everybody for a curveball with that. The charge to the BAC, this is a board committee, so the Board of Education must select what charge they're going to do. It's not an administrative committee. It's not one that's run by the administrators here, the cabinet, or the administrators in the district. So the board can choose to maneuver that as well. Sue and I have had several conversations, as well as Vinny, about multi-year assignments to this. I don't know if everyone would want to do that, but if that's the case, that stability for the BAC would make it a lot easier for all of us, because then when we do those presentations, we don't have to keep repeating them every year, and you'd be kind of accustomed to that. But like you said, if someone doesn't want to do it and wants to come off, then the board would do whatever selection process that they have set up already for that continue. However, that new member should serve for 2 more years. So you're then not replacing the entire BAC in those 2-year periods. That would be my suggestion, so you keep that rotating. As far as recommendations regarding the strategic plan, so I want to give an update to the community and to those few people that are in the room here about where we stand. So we are working with the transportation consultant. The transportation consultant was actually in yesterday and had interviewed all of our building principals. Had previously been in and met with Mr. Carlson and Ms. Casella, our Director of Transportation. Did a tour of some of our schools at dismissal time to see some of those things. They're coming back again. We're hopeful that the report will be done by June. That's their intent to have it to us. But that's the time frame they have provided given the evidence that they're trying to look at. The recommendations on the start time, there's an assumption in there that it's going to save money. We don't know if it will or it will cost more money, but we need to be attentive to whatever that recommendation is that comes from the transportation consultant. It's best to have a person outside of us, even though we have experienced people. Mr. Carlson's over 30 years in business, and Mrs. Casella's over 30 years as in transportation have been wonderful. But for the community's sake, to see someone else's viewpoints on this, especially when we're looking at that start time consideration, it will be very, very helpful. With regard to the cost for restructuring, we did the presentation to the board in the fall, but we want to just go over a little bit of that. So in the current budget for next year, we have $3 million put into capital reserves. $2 million roughly of that capital reserves is for the reconstruction at the high school to accommodate the 9th grade moving up there. And I just want to go over what that entails. That would be 4 additional classrooms being constructed in the locker bank sections of both the north and south second floors. 3 additional earth science labs, which earth science of all the sciences needs mostly cabinetry and tables. We're not going to buy tables through a capital project. We would do that through our budget. We need a couple more, 2 more at least, practice rooms for the music department and another art room. So those are the major considerations right now that would entail. As Mr. Carlson indicated in several of the meetings, an architect, the community has to approve the ability for us to spend the money before we can hire an architect to really give us that. These are just estimates at this point in time. And that's a legal piece that we as a district have no control of, the board has no control over, the BAC has no control over. That's sort of what the state has required for us to be able to do. As far as the staffing estimates, as we put in before, we're estimating 3 additional guidance counselors because of the grade level going up, and 3.6 FTEs in world languages for the 6th grade coming in. So that's, we're going to be offering a world language opportunity for the 6th graders, which is not currently part of their program. The pre-K is very, very hard to predict. The kindergarten's hard to predict as it stands, so pre-K is even harder. But as we move forward to 2030 with the requirement that we have a full day pre-K program, I think it's very well heard from our standpoint, and something we need to continue to work on is if we are going to have to increase the amount of staff there, we should probably start doing that sooner than later so we don't get hit with a major bullet at 2029-30 for the following year. And the only way, honestly, to do that at this point in time is to really just take the current kindergarten sections and estimate what that would be. Now, not every parent's going to want to have their child in pre-K. It's not a required grade level, but the districts will be required to offer it. So the UPK money at that point in time, and we hope that it will increase every year as it keeps going, and is in our aid runs every year, which kind of offsets that number that we think we're getting because it's built into there. That money can be utilized to help offset the cost, and most likely by that point in time, it will be much less of a staffing cost as we move forward. But again, it's very hard to estimate what the exact number is going to be. Our elementary enrollment's stabilizing, but we're not stabilizing in the 500, 600, 700 range as we used to be years ago when the district had 8,000 or 9,000 students in it. We're stabilizing in the 300 to 400 range now. So that's sort of where it's leveling off. We're still experiencing a decline in secondary enrollment at this point, and the budget reflects those numbers. An update on the strategic plan itself. So we've begun the transition team meetings. Several of the transition teams in-house are actually meeting across teams to have discussions. I am very grateful to all the administrators and teachers for their hard work on this. A lot of questions have come up. We've tried to provide some answers, particularly with the middle school level, with what the sixth grade, what kind of supports they're going to have, what kind of offerings as far as courses. As you mentioned, world languages. Ms. Keene, who is present here tonight, has been a major advocate because of her work with looking at the middle school model in other school districts and what that looks like, and thinking about providing an advisory period as part of that normal part of the school day. For the high school, for the ninth grade, same concept, supports, offerings, and a freshman orientation. Since we're going to have 2 grade levels moving up at the same time, we have currently a sophomore orientation, we need to look at what a freshman orientation will look like. So they're still working. But one thing I want to acknowledge, which we've said over and over again at the 40-plus meetings we had last year, if we are not prepared, and these teams are the ones that are going to help us make the determination if we are or we're not, then I will be the first person to come to the board and say, we need more time. This is not a race. It's a marathon. We have to do it right and do it well because it'll affect the future impact of what this district will look like. So it is not a failure to recognize that we might need more time. However, I don't feel at this point that that is required. I'm giving ourselves, we have 2.5 months to the end of this school year if we are fully prepared. And I will tell you, I am very blessed to work with so many wonderful teachers and administrators in this district. They are not shy about sharing their opinions with me, so they'll let me know whether I'm out of my mind. And some people have come to this board meeting and told me I'm out of my mind. But we're here to make sure that we're doing the right thing for kids. So if our plan is in place and we think that we need just more time to do that, so be it. But we want to see if all these great concepts can be incorporated together to make our district even better than it is right now. We're in a great place. We're in a position of nothing has to change immediately, but we also have to be careful because I cannot predict what the governor is going to say next year or the year after that or the year after that. All I know is if we are going to have pre-K, I need to figure out where they're going to be because right now, if they were to come, 3 of our elementary schools couldn't fit them. So that's one thing that we need to be very, very attentive to as we move through this process. So again, I thank the BAC once again for all their work. Greatly appreciate all that. I thank the Board of Education for charging this committee once again to assist us in the budgetary process. If you haven't heard the good news, it's been out in the papers. The governor has restored the hold harmless for next year, so we're in good shape that way. We still not have heard whether or not, how much or whether or not we're going to have an increase and what that will look like. So we're hopeful that we'll get some type of increase. But we've already made a recommendation to the board about what we believe we should do with that. It's now to the board's discretion to discuss what that should be as we move forward. And hopefully by the time we meet on May 8th, we'll have more information about what that will look like from the governor's office and the state education department and the legislature. Thank you very much again.
And I'm just going to jump in on the restructuring conversation, even though it's a little bit of an aside to the BAC. Just to hammer that point home one more time, because there is a little bit of misconception out in the world. There's never been, it was never the intention that this is, we're on a mission and there's no stopping us, right? This has been a very thoughtful, careful process. And if new information comes to light that changes the conversation, we will pause and we will adjust to it. So I just want everyone to feel reassured about that. And the other thing I would love to say is, if you have concerns, if you have thoughts, if you have suggestions, if you don't understand something, if you're coming to the conversation a little bit late and you're, what? The 6th grade's moving? That's okay. That's okay. Let's talk about it, though, in the appropriate channels. Come to a meeting. Call me. Call Dr. Scanlon. Call Mr. Carlson. Call somebody. Don't sit at home and ruminate with your friends. Don't go out on Facebook. Come talk to the people who can actually give you answers and have a two-way conversation and hear what your concerns are as well. So my phone number is everywhere. You know how to find me. All right. Thank you again to the BAC. Circling back to that. Reactions, questions, conversations about their specific recommendations. Okay, I think they were great. I also love the forward thinking that you're thinking about the next time and how to do it better, because I think each year we are getting a little bit better. And I love the idea of you kicking us to the curb early so you can formulate your own goals. I think that's brilliant, and I wish you the best of luck with that. So thank you again sincerely, and we really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, I
Yes.
just wanted to say quickly, thank you to everybody that sits on there. I sat on it years ago, so I know the commitment and the time that it takes for everybody to research before you go into the meetings, after you go into the meetings, and when you're at the meetings. So just thank you to everybody that sat on there and all of your recommendations. I agree with a lot of them. I think we're going to have a lot of conversations as a board on how it's going to be structured, and a lot of your suggestions I absolutely agree with. So I'm looking forward to what next year is going to bring. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you. All right, that brings us now to 6C, the actual budget itself. Mr. Carlson.
Thank you. So a lot of this is kind of a recap of what we've done so far. So the tax cap, as I've explained in prior meetings, it's in previous years, it is not just a 2% tax cap, even though sometimes it's still referred to that in the media. There are a number of variables that determine what the cap is, and the cap varies from district to district and year to year. For this coming up year, our cap, which is really cool, it's really, the technical term is maximum levy increase, is 2.84%. And the budget that we're putting forward complies with that. If anybody is interested, this is the official tax cap calculation from the Comptroller's Office. So Dr. Scanlon was mentioning earlier, several years ago, I had this same slide up, and I think that night there was students that had been awarded math prizes, and they all looked at it and said, well, yeah, that makes sense. And so nobody else thought it made sense, but the real math scholars did. So on the revenue side, so in the budget, we're assuming no change to foundation aid, meaning we're not getting that big decrease that the governor has now said will not happen this year. We expect and hope for somewhat of an increase, but that's not included in this budget. We don't want to assume that's going to happen. We think it will happen. It's not going to be anything in the millions of dollars. It would be great, but I don't think that will happen. Other revenue that is increasing in this budget is about $1.1 million. Mostly that's in interest income because of interest rates rising, but also year to year, the tuition rates that we charge to students from other districts goes up, and also our fees for SAC and summer rec program and that kind of thing is increasing along with inflation. The staffing changes that are being made in this budget, we're adding 3 additional elementary teaching positions to address class size issues. Of our retirements, which we had a number of, about 15 of those positions will not, all different types, not just teachers, all different types of employees will not need to be replaced, and that's all through attrition based on not replacing some of the retirees. We're also doing some administrative restructuring that is saving us about $250,000. We're not increasing the number of administrators with changing some positions around. And in the staffing, we know there's going to be some need for perhaps special education, E&L, along those lines. We don't know exactly yet how many, but we know there's going to be some need for that. On the expenditure side, some of the larger increases relate to health insurance and our retirement system costs, and that's $3.3 million for those two. We're increasing some, every year we like to increase our security posture. We're adding some more surveillance cameras, which prove very useful. Where a new literacy program is we have an increase in textbooks, and then also in IT contractual services, especially Chromebook repairs and cloud storage. The prices are skyrocketing. As I mentioned a minute ago, also with special education and ENL, we know we're going to have some needs in those areas as well. In some cases, it's not until students move into the district that we even know it. But we know we know it's going to come because it happens every year.
Could I just interrupt for 1 second? From Ms. Connolly's presentation, we know right now from the pre-K to the kindergarten, we have 37 self-contained students coming into that level. So that alone will be part of the rationale for that special education area increase.
On the budgetary reductions side, the a retirement incentive was offered this year to our Teachers Association, our Administrators Association, the Clerical Unit, and the Maintenance and Operations Unit. And a number of people have taken advantage of that, as I mentioned earlier, with the positions that will not need to be replaced through attrition, but it's also saving almost $3 million in next year's budget. So that worked out very well. We're using grants as much as possible to fund positions that otherwise would have to go into the budget. We've made reductions in supplies, materials, and equipment. Sometimes our principals and directors, they don't like it when I call because it's usually them asking me for money, and during budget time, it's me telling them we need to cut some more. But we've cut as much as we feel we could and still be able to provide the services that we need. Also, contracted services, including BOCES, we're reducing as much as possible. Dr. Scanlon mentioned capital projects, and one little technical correction I want to make, it's not transfer into capital reserve. Capital reserve would mean it's going into a reserve to be used at some later date. This is transfer into capital projects fund. So the $3 million is to be used for capital projects in this coming up year. Everything else Dr. Scanlon said about it was correct. So when we go out to, these projects go out to bid, right? That's the process. And when we go out to bid, and we know there are some contractors that are fantastic, and there are contractors that will try to rob us blind if they could. So the specification book and the drawings have to itemize in minute detail every single piece of information that detail about that project. If we had a simple bathroom renovation, the spec book could be hundreds of pages long, itemizing every single little minute detail. So if the contractor didn't use the right type of nail or the right number of nails or whatever, we could say it was in there and you didn't follow it. The work to do that takes our architect literally months. We cannot, this is what Dr. Scanlon was referring to, we have an architect that we use. We've used for a number of years, does a fantastic job for us. But he cannot do all of these plans and specifications for these projects unless there is voter approval. Because if he did all of that, and then the budget doesn't pass, and we can't do those projects, we would still have to pay for that work that we had the architect do. But on the other hand, we didn't get voter approval for it. So that's the problem with that. So that's what Dr. Scanlon was referring to. Now, our architect works with us in developing the estimates, and he's very good at it. He specializes, in fact, his father started specializing in school district architecture, and he's in about 35 or more school districts. So he knows what he's doing. He knows how to estimate projects, and that's where the number comes from. After there is voter approval, the architect draws up the plans and specifications. Then they go to the State Education Department's Office of Facilities Planning. And this is why I've said before, and I'm not trying to be funny when I say it this way, they sit on a shelf for 6 to 9 months waiting their turn in line to be reviewed because the State Education Department is so short-staffed. And this is nothing new. It's always been this way. It takes a long time to get the approval on those projects. Only until we get, it's called commissioner's approval on the projects, can we go out to bid on them. Once we go out to bid, then we know the exact cost. So up until then, it's estimates. So these are the projects that we're including in this year's budget. The Ward Melville renovations to accommodate ninth grade, And then, depending on exactly how much that costs, any additional money that we would have would go towards student bathroom renovations and asbestos abatement projects throughout the district. I've mentioned before, capital project expenses are outside the tax cap or exclusions from the tax cap. What that means is we cannot use this money for operational expenses. We can't just say, well, let's do that, and then after the budget passes, say, you know what, forget that $3 million. Let's just use that to hire more staff. We can't. Money that's approved by the voters as capital projects can only be used for capital projects. And, of course, we get building aid on these projects. So we will get reimbursed for 66% of the cost. So, again, as I've mentioned before, I know probably all of us would agree. I know certainly if somebody was paying 2/3 of the cost for any work I did on my house, I'd do a lot more work. It's a great deal, and we like to take advantage of that. So to summarize where we are, dollars to dollars, the budget increase is a little over $5.2 million, which represents a 2.27% increase, and the tax levy increase is just over $4.8 million, which represents a 2.84% increase. And because that does comply with the tax cap, this budget would require the simple majority, meaning 50% plus one of the voters who vote, to vote yes in order for it to pass. So what happens if the budget doesn't pass? Well, then the options are we can put the same budget up for a second vote. If there is a second vote, it's the third Tuesday in June. The board can choose to revise the budget and put that up for a vote in June, or go straight to contingency. Going straight to contingency is the same as if it were to fail a second time. And that means no increase to the tax levy at all. And from this budget that we're presenting, it would mean another $4.8 million in reductions to achieve that. So the vote itself, third Tuesday in May 21st, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. We're doing all the voting at Ward Mobile High School in the gym. It works out very well from a security standpoint, and also from the when we used to have the voting at the elementary schools, not everybody voted for the school budget in the same school building that they would vote for a general election. So there was always confusion with that. So it's really working out well since we started having it all at the high school. So everybody knows where to vote. There is also, this year, for the first time, early voting available. And the rules for that are similar or the same as getting an absentee ballot, correct?
Yes, it's the same deadlines. And the information's on the website now. The applications for absentee ballots and early mail ballots are on the website.
And that's all I have, unless, of course, there are any questions.
I do have a question. So at our last meeting, I kind of want to circle back to what Dr. McKinnon brought up, because we heard you very, very eloquently speak, but didn't really have a chance to respond. So what you were proposing was a zero increase budget, and I just want to drill down a little bit into that number of what would that look like for our kids?
Well, a zero increase budget would be a reduction from where we are of $5.2 million. So to do that, now, of course, if the governor's budget proposal had gone through, which he had first proposed, and that would have been more like a $10 million reduction, and we would have had no choice, and we would have had to do whatever it took to get to that. And that would have been a lot more than this. So, but to reduce $5.2 million from the budget, so it would be a lot of discussion. So I'm just kind of saying what I would look at first is, well, okay, let's, all areas, whatever staff we would have to reduce. And on the teacher side, we'd have to look at class size, right? So there are contractual class size limits, maximum class sizes within our teacher's contract that we could go up a little bit to that. It wouldn't come anywhere, and whatever staff that saves, it would go towards that, but it wouldn't be anything close to that. Then we would have to look at things, this is a lot of money, so we'd have to look at things like, well, what's not mandated? Well, some of our special education services are not mandated, so we could look at that. We could look at kindergarten. Kindergarten's not mandated. Our pre-K program, of course, that's easier to look at than kindergarten. However, the pre-K program that we have also has, it's a half-day, and it has a half-day enrichment program, which is fee-based. So the fees that we collect from the enrichment part of the day offset a good portion of the cost for the regular pre-K part of the day. So if we were to cut that out, it saves a little money. I think it comes out, it's under $400,000 is right now our total net cost for our pre-K program when we consider the enrichment revenue that comes in. So we could look at kindergarten, as I said, that's not mandated. Things like athletics, it's not mandated. Clubs, field trips, but it's a lot of money we'd have to come up with, and it would be a lot of discussion of, well, what should we cut to do that?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, can I respond?
Sure.
So to be clear, I said the taxpayers were justified in asking for reductions in light of past failures to recognise changes in to make up for changes in the size of the enrolment. I also said that would only be in the case where the governor gave all the money that was available. So obviously something would be less than that if that was not the case. And again, I want to make the point that it's been 20 years since there's been unaffiliated trustees on this board. And I do understand that it's unusual to hear a defence of taxpayer interests from the board, and that's what I was attempting to do during the last meeting. It's important to note that the taxpayers in this district have been remarkably supportive of education over the last 20 years, especially given how little representation they've had during that period. The taxpayers of this district are hard-working, dedicated people who care very seriously about the success of the district's children. Nonetheless, like everyone else, they would like some consideration of their interests and some representation on the board. This is what a functional board looks like. Taxpayers get an interest, they get a representation on the board, you come in and make an argument for their position.
Thank you. All right, so this is it. This is the last hurrah. So any questions, any curiosities, anything you need to know about the budget now before we move forward toward a vote?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a brief statement. I just wanted to talk about financial responsibility for a moment. Being financially responsible is not always about cutting costs. It's about making sure we're using our money in our best way possible. To me, that's making sure our students receive best possible education and supports we can provide, and also providing meaningful professional development to our teachers so they can excel at what they are providing for our students. Dr. Scanlon and Mr. Carlson and the rest of their team did a great job this year on looking through our programs and departments to fine-tune things. This is not a one-year process, and it's going to take many years to come. Despite the uncertainties with our state aid, I do believe this year is a great start. The retirement incentive was extremely successful. We had a total of 67 retirements across all staff, and we were able to eliminate 15 positions due to the decreased enrollment in specific areas. This gave us a net savings of $2.9 million. We'll be hiring 3 new elementary teachers due to class sizes, which most of that is due to contractual obligations. We will probably be hiring new E&L teachers and some new special ed teachers due to the increased enrollments in those areas, and those are mandated positions for needed services. There's also been reconstruction in the administration roles, and by doing so, the director curriculum has been brought back without an increase to the amount of administrators and is still netting a savings over $250,000. With the upcoming changes in our reading curriculum, math curriculum, Regents tests, and new graduation requirements, it's imperative that we have somebody assisting Dr. Biscari in that implementation. There are many expenses as a district that we do not have control on a yearly basis. Vendor cost increases, BOCES increases, benefits increases, and negotiated raises. To be able to present a balanced budget that takes all of that into account while not accessing any staff or cutting any programs is pretty impressive to me. Do I think things can be tweaked over the next couple of years? Absolutely. But this is a great start, and when we start discussing our 5-year plan, which we will be doing soon, I believe, and we'll be able to get a clearer picture on how we can work that into the budget while keeping our costs as fiscally responsible.
Okay,
Thank you.
I got it.
Yes.
So last week, our last meeting, I talked a bit about taxpayers' interest. I'd like to just talk briefly about representation of parents and students' interests. Some people wonder why we make such a continuing issue about high school start times. I can hear everybody groan right now. The reason is that this is such a slam dunk. Governor DeSantis of Florida, Governor Newsom of California agree on almost nothing. Yet both of them have passed state laws saying that high school cannot start before 8:30 a.m. They did this because it unequivocally benefits high school students. Despite 15 years of effort, parents have made no progress in achieving something comparable, parents in this district. Improving the transport system adds no cost to the overall budget and only involves a modest redistribution of funds internally. Even a modest amount of financial planning at any point over the last 15 years would have made this change possible. Essentially, a burden was placed on the kids due to an unwillingness to accept some financial constraints of financial planning. This disadvantaged a complete generation of students relative to many students across the nation. I understand, as Karen has eloquently expressed, that the current administration is trying to address these issues, and the current budget is a significant step forward with respect to cost control. I would like to see a longer-term financial plan that puts the interest of taxpayers, parents, and students on a par with some of the other bargaining units in the system. Contracts are contracts, I understand that, but taxpayers, parents, and students have interests as well, and until we have a firm financial plan, the issues surrounding increasing costs and distributions of funds will not get resolved in a way that is transparent to everyone.
So, Dr. McKinnon, I'd just like to address some of those concerns. So I disagree with the fact that the taxpayers have not been represented by this board or the previous boards, nor the administrations. Although the affiliations of support for board members have occurred, I believe all the board members over the past at least 12 years I've been back in the district have done a wonderful job trying to represent all constituencies within this district: taxpayers, parents, students, our teachers, our administrators, across the board. It's been challenging times. We went through a period back when the tax cap was put into place, and we had reductions in funding, and what the state has still owed us and still continues to owe us in those areas that we haven't addressed. It's, I think the administration has tried to do a wonderful job of trying to balance that out. When I arrived here, the first year I was here, there was 150 teachers and administrators laid off. Thank goodness we didn't have to do that this year. So I don't think any of us, and my team as well as the administrators in the district, we have met with probably every constituency group in this district that we could meet with. We've offered olive branches to everyone to see about bringing people to the table, have conversations. So I think there is more of a representation now of those interests in seeing what's going on. But I disagree with the fact that I don't think the average taxpayer wants to see larger class sizes and massive reductions. There are certain things within the state that are beyond our control. One example is the APPR system, which still exists, which is the annual professional performance review. There must be 3 observations every non-tenured teacher and 2 of every tenured teacher. That has to be done by an administrator. With a team of only about 50 administrators in the district trying to observe almost 700 teachers and TAs and SCAs, it's a tremendous burden. And my role alone, and I'm trying to pat myself on the back, I've done dozens of observations, as has Dr. Dabrowski and Dr. Biscari. We're trying to alleviate the pressure in our areas there. I think there's an assumption when we talk about the transportation piece yet, and I would venture we should probably wait and to hear from the consultant before we make an assumption that it may be a cost savings or where that money could come from. Because while we've assessed it and we've said it's going to be an increase, we're relying on this other transportation expert to come in and try to assure us of that. What I do want to go back to is back about, I think it's about 14 years ago, the district went through an efficiency piece, and we actually changed our current system. We managed to actually save money in transportation, which was acknowledged by I don't know where the grant came from, but we were given a grant for an efficiency grant because of
Yes,
what
it was from New York State. It was called the School District Management Efficiency Award.
Right.
And we were one of only, I think it was 8 or 10 school districts in the state that got it.
So that cost savings that by the adjustment at that point in time, compounded over the next 14 years, has saved us almost $30 million.
A little over $30 million.
$30 million. So when we talk about keeping the taxpayers in mind, that was done then. When I first came out with the issue with the start time, I've acknowledged in my role as superintendent that we are one of the earliest start times in this state. It is by far an issue from a health standpoint that needs to be addressed. How we address that now with the entire community has to be looked at, but it can't be done necessarily without looking at money. So even Dr. Max, who's been here several times and has worked with us, thank goodness, has acknowledged the fact that these things were put into place to save money, and then to put them back into place to correct the times is probably going to cost money. Again, I'm not trying to predict what the transportation consultant might say. They might come up with something else that might wind up giving us an idea where we're going. It is well within the purview of this current board, and you being a member of that board, and the rest of the board members here, to address contracts as they come forward. You have 3 contracts this year that you're negotiating. If the concern is that those costs cannot exceed where our tax levies are occurring, then that needs to be done in collective bargaining in a fair and appropriate manner with those units. And as we move forward to subsequent units, addresses it at those times. So now all of you on the board have the ability to address that and see what that is moving forward. So we need to be attentive that our teachers are, in this district in particular, we have a number of our teachers and administrators who live and work here. And the costs for all Long Islanders and all people in New York State are going up and up and up. And a large portion of those costs are the taxes associated with school districts. It is a funding dilemma because of the way New York State funds schools. The burden in other states isn't there because it isn't funded that way in many other states. So while at our level you can solve a part of it, at a state legislative level, because that's where that comes from, it has to be addressed there. It is becoming increasingly hard for the taxpayers in every one of the communities. And by the way, the people that work here are also taxpayers as well, to live and work on Long Island. We already have some of our newer teachers that are working 2 jobs just to be able to afford to stay on Long Island. And I fear for our younger generations as they come up to try to either live and work on Long Island with the way salaries are going. And that's true for across all professions. So we need to rethink the model of taxation in our state. But I'm not George Washington. I'm not going to start throwing tea into Boston Harbor. Not that George Washington was at Boston Harbor. I know I'm a history teacher. I will tell you that didn't happen. But we have to be conscious of the fact that we all need to address this. And I think what we should be proud of in this district right now is this community banded together when the governor's proposal was put out and wrote letters to legislators, to the Senate, to the assemblymen, to the governor, to try to advocate for our district to be restored funding. And thankfully, through the support of all those people in this community, it was the one thing I think that united Democrats and Republicans in Albany, that everyone thought this idea was crazy, and they went to and managed to get this put through. That has unified us. And we need, unfortunately, to continue to fight for that, because if the formula is going to be changed, where they're going to take a 10-year average of enrollment, that's not reflecting the more recent picture of what Three Village is looking like. And I think we need to have more attention to that fact. So I hope that all of you as board members will continue to band together and fight for this, as the administration has, the teachers have, the parents in this community have, to continue to fight for Three Village as we move forward. The Three Village of today is not the Three Village of 20 years ago, and it's certainly not going to be the Three Village of 20 years from now. The times are changing. This community is changing. I feel like I'm the boy who cried wolf. I've been saying for 12 years that things are changing, and you could see it happening, and now it's here, and it's going to continue to go that route. So we need to be prepared for a future that we cannot predict just yet, but we need to have those numbers, and we need to have the unified force within this community of every member of the community. Regardless of whether you are on one group or another group, you all need to have one single factor, that you need to fight for this district and these taxpayers and these children at the state level. That's what it should be about. So thank you very much to our board members for your continued support, all of you. And even those, it's wonderful that our process in the American system is that we can sit at a table and have differences of opinions, but we kind of come to what's best interest for our children.
Can I respond very briefly?
Yes, you may.
Only if you say yes.
Yes, I thought that was a very inspiring speech. Okay, so most of the problems I address stretch back 15, 17 years. There are issues with the previous administration. I agree that we're headed in the right direction. I know how hard everybody works here. I've been surprised what a obviously I'm new here. I've been surprised what an incredibly complex and difficult operation this is to run. I also understand the problems with the various issues with the finances. This being said, I was elected to represent a point of view. This is the point of view I have to come in and, well, I don't have to do it, I could just stay at home, but this is the point of view I've been elected to present, and I'm going to come in and present it as the best I can. I think it is ultimately important to hear every voice in these debates. You look at what's happened out at Riverhead, there's been 60 people laid off. Those people didn't read the room, basically. They're not listening to what the funders of education are saying. And that, I think that's important here. And I think we've actually seen that in this community with the budget crossing the tax cap, that there wasn't an effort to read the room, or there wasn't listening to what taxpayers say. I think, and this is my opinion, I think the taxpayers in this district are phenomenal. I feel like they step up to the plate almost without exception, and they've done a phenomenal job. I think while there are problems that we do hear about, particularly the parents in this district are really making an effort in general to produce kids that want to come to school and learn. And so we should be grateful for that, and part of that gratitude involves listening to everybody and making sure that they're all represented.
So I agree with that as well. I wouldn't have had 40 meetings last year on the strategic plan if I wasn't trying to listen to everyone. I think we were trying to do our best efforts to continue to do that as we move forward. So starting tomorrow, after the board makes their decision tonight with the budget, Mr. Carlson and I are going to spend a lot of time going to every one of our PTAs. We're going to be speaking with different constituent groups like the Civics Association, the Three Village Dads. We're going to Jefferson Ferry this year. We're trying to get ourselves out there to every area of the community imaginable to try to present what our budget is and what the district looks like and what the future looks like. So we're constantly listening to whatever. And I've often said, even the people that are the naysayers, and several of them have come to the podium here in public participation sessions and expressed their opinions about which direction the board has gone, which the administration has gone, what the future plans may be. We need to listen to those naysayers because everyone has an opinion on some of these issues, and perhaps some of it is true, perhaps some of it is not, but they're entitled to their opinions. They're taxpayers too, and we just need to be attentive. Sometimes there's a modicum of, we didn't think about that, and we reconsider some of those things. So if anyone sits in my chair in the future, and I'm not going to be here forever, some of you may be thanking God for that right now, the thing that you have to remember, and I just said this to the board early tonight, if anyone sits here and tells you that they know everything and they have all the answers, they're an idiot. Don't listen to them. Don't ever let them stay in that role too long. You need to be able to say that you're never going to know all the things. You're never going to see all. That's why you try to surround yourselves with smart people. And I think this board has done that and will continue to do that. And we're also very grateful to the taxpayers who continue to support the educational system in this community. We're grateful to the parents who continue to send their children to our schools all the time, with whatever supports have been graciously. I always say we spend 98% of our time listening to 2% of the complaints. So it's 2% of the people that are out there. The rest we don't hear from, but that vast majority of people are very happy, and occasionally we'll have concerns. But my phone always rings, my email, I'll respond to all the emails, and I know the board members do the same. I know the rest of the administrators do the same. We're very, very lucky in that regard.
So, actually, we do listen to the taxpayers because the budget has always passed, except for 2 years, and we try to break the tax cap. Other than that, our budget passes because we do try and keep it in line with what's supposed to happen, but most importantly, keep our students number one. We have to continue keep our school district as good as it is and even make it better if we can.
Okay, no statement. Quite quick question to Mr. Carlson. So, in the past, we always send a budget bulletin to the public, to
Yes.
the community about what will happen. So, in the case the budget wouldn't pass, and in the case the board chose to go straight to contingency with reduction of 4.8 million, what does that mean? Because I think in the bulletin we usually publish what would happen if that happened.
Well, so what we publish in the bulletin normally, and just like I said tonight, that means zero, go straight to contingency, means a reduction of $4.8 million. Now, exactly what gets cut, that's going to be would be a lot of discussion we would have with our building administrators and our district level administrators, and then we would bring recommendations to the board, and that would be a lot of discussion that would take place over June and July, exactly what. So we can't say, oh, well, if the budget fails, this, and this are out. We could say $4.8 million is out, but exactly what, that's a lot of discussion.
So in the
including
bulletin,
with
we
the board.
wouldn't give any information about what that 4.8 million reduction would involve?
No, and one thing we always have to be careful about too is we have to be very careful to not make it sound like we're threatening. We can't say things like, well, if the budget doesn't pass, sports are gone, kindergarten's gone. We can't say things like that. It's possible that those things could happen, but it's not something that we can, because I'm sure the commissioner, if it went to the commissioner, would say, you were really trying to coerce people into voting for the budget by using scare tactics. So we have to be very careful with that. Just like us as administration and you as board members, cannot go out and tell people, you should vote for the budget because it'll be make for a better education for your child. That's a subjective statement. We can't make subjective statements when it comes to the budget. We as district officials, we can't make subjective statements when it comes to the budget. When it comes to voting for the budget, we could state facts. We could say, if we do not have a passed budget from this budget we're presenting now, we would have to cut $4.8 million from it. That's a fact. That's not a subjective statement. What gets cut? That's a lot more discussion. Us with our administrators first, then we bring recommendations to the board, a lot of discussion with the board as to exactly what gets cut. So we just have to be careful in making statements
I see.
like, if this happens, that will happen. It's got to be factual.
Okay, got it.
So can I just address that? So that's something of a hypothetical, because it would not make a lot of sense to go to contingency in that setting, as I understand it. We did once go to contingency, and in fact, there was little or no cuts. That was the year of the tax cap one. So every system has some adjustment available to it, but I think we are now getting close to the bone, and I'm not suggesting that that's a good idea. In fact, I think it would be a terrible idea to go to contingency.
Okay. Anybody else? Last call. Karen? Nope. Okay. Your mic is still on. Sorry. The red light. I look for the red lights. All right. Nothing further on the budget. Then I would see if we have a motion to move our public comment period to this point in the meeting. Do I have a motion? Second? All in favor? Okay. So we will move to public comments. I know I have one that was submitted ahead of time. Do we have anyone else? Okay. And I'm definitely reading this? You don't want? I cannot do that. Sorry. I wish I could. All right. Dear Board of Education trustees, as I'm sure you are aware, many parents and taxpayers are anxiously following the saga of the secondary school start times. We know that out of concern for this year's potential New York State aid cuts, which are now unlikely to happen, you tabled the vote for the 2025-26 healthier school start times implementation. Can we get a formal commitment that this change will in fact occur in the 2025-26 academic school year, as recommended by several community-based committees and by the administration? If not, can you address the fact that the proposed restructuring will result in the 6th and 9th grades also moving to earlier and unhealthy start times in contradiction of previously established guidelines? Thank you in advance. Barbara Rosati. And seeing as there are no others, we will move ahead on our agenda. There are no items for board discussion. We are not going to do our policies tonight. There are no items for board action, so we go to our consent agenda number 10. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. I am going to move that we pull out item C, which is the actual vote on the budget, and move that to the end as a separate piece. I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of removing item C? Thank you. All right, then we will go to, sorry, forgive me, B, Ms. Germano.
It's just the minutes from the last board meeting.
Okay, thank you. And for items D through H, Mr. Carlson?
Thank you. For donations, we have two. One is a check for $2,500 from the Setauket PTA for cultural, arts, and education programs at Setauket Elementary School. And then we also have a donation of 10 $100 gift cards from the Three Village Bunny Brigade to be used by high school seniors needing assistance in purchasing prom wear or yearbooks. Item E is a bid extension for our driver education program with the same company we're using this year, with the fee to be increased based on the increase in the consumer price index, the same one that the New York State Education Department establishes for school bus transportation contracts. Item F is declaration of surplus equipment. We have some desks from Jelinas. We have 3 AEDs that have outlived their lifespan, some file cabinets from North Country, and some IT equipment that has been stripped of any useful parts. Item G is declaration of surplus textbooks, and that is science textbooks from Jelinas Junior, sorry, I couldn't remember which school, Jelinas Junior High School, that are outdated. And item H is health and welfare services contract for 2 school districts. One is South Huntington Schools and the other is Syosset School District. This is for 3 Village residents, students who attend private schools located within those school districts. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Any questions about any of those items? Okay. And I just want to circle back. I should have, just to speak specifically, that was a change to the meeting agenda. As we mentioned earlier, 8A through O are going to be moved to the May 8th board meeting. Those are our policies. All right, item I, Dr. Scanlon.
Yes, Dr. Biscari couldn't be with us this evening, so you have to settle for me. The first one is the affiliation agreement with Long Island University. This continues our relationships with many of the schools in the region for placements for social workers, psychologists, and such. Item J is the appointment of impartial hearing officers. As the list is updated each time from the state of New York, we have to make the adjustments to our list.
Thank you. Any questions on those? Okay. Recommendations of the Committee on Special Education, Subcommittee and 504 Accommodation Plan meetings as dated, and recommendations of the Committee on Preschool Special Education meetings as dated. And we go now to, you cover the, okay, M? M, okay. Yes, for M and Dr. Dabrowski.
Yes, so personnel items instructional. We have 1 instructional retirement. We have a few instructional resignations, 1 leave of absence, appointment of both teacher and instructional substitutes, including various appointments and adjustments to spring coaching assignments and athletic supervision. Non-instructional, we have 2 non-instructional retirements, 2 special ed aides. We have 2 non-instructional resignations, 1 special ed aide and 1 security guard, an appointment of 1 non-instructional position as a child care assistant, appointment of 3 non-instructional subs, and adjustment to 1 summer rec employee for prep work.
Okay, any questions on any of that? Okay, so to approve all of those items, all in favor?
So moved.
Okay. So that'll circle back now to the budget itself. And what I would like to do is I'm going to go one at a time and ask each of the trustees if there is anything about this budget that you would change. And we'll start with Mr. Vizzo.
I'm fine with the budget.
Okay, Dr. Lee?
Good with me.
Okay, Mrs. Rupley?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Kerman?
Very good, thank you.
And Dr. McKinnon?
So I will probably abstain on this. I'm still.
Oh, turn your mic on, sorry. Your mic.
I'll probably abstain on this, mainly because I remain concerned that without a clear and strict financial plan to represent everybody's interests, we're just kicking the can down the road. We know our costs are increasing faster than our revenue. That's going to be a recipe for a problem if it's not already here. And to some degree it is already here. We already are cutting stuff and can't implement things that we really should implement. We need a financial plan that everybody agrees on. I think that's going to be a very hard process because it's going to require givebacks from everybody and a recognition of the limits of the finances here, but we have to have that because otherwise we're just setting ourselves up for financial problems.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the recommended 2024-25 budget and property tax report card? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. Okay, thank you so much. All right, if there is nothing else at this time, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great night.